We move on now to our final session, which is a panel on investor sentiment, where our next set of guests will take a look at some of the different types of hospitality assets Morocco has to offer private investors, government support to international investment, as well as some of the brownfield projects to attract private capital into Morocco's tourism industry. To tell us more and to do the introductions, please join me in welcoming your moderator for this next session, Jonathan Worsley, Chairman and CEO of Bench.
Thank you so much, Laura. Just a delight to be here. And I've got a very exciting panel session, and it's great that they're all involved in investment in Morocco or looking to invest in Morocco. So we're going to get a slightly different perspective from what we've heard this morning in terms of the approach of what they're looking at. So first, let me introduce Khalid. Come and join me up on the stage. Khalid is CEO of Abu Dhabi National Hotels Company, and a Finnish citizen, and started his career in Morocco, interestingly, and has had some involvement, of course, in investing in Morocco over the years. I'd like to introduce Fardan Al Fardan. Fardan, lovely to see you. He's the founder of Embassy Capital Limited, a multi-asset management company based in Dubai, and has successfully closed numerous transactions in both the Middle East and Europe, and has been and is looking currently at investing in Morocco. And then finally to Lourie Kruger. Lourie, lovely to see you. He's head of transactions for the Middle East and Africa for Westmont Hospitality Group, one of the world's largest private owner-operators of hotels. Lourie oversees the organic growth of the company in the Middle East and Africa, and previously worked for Kingdom Hotels and owned the Four Seasons Marrakech before selling to Westmont, of which he, of course, is now in charge of in terms of acquisitions. So you've got 500 hotels, and you came into Africa in 2015, I believe. So it's been about 6 years now where you've been investing in the region. So guys, just great to have you, and a really interesting perspective, given that you all have investments or looking to invest in Morocco. Just give us a quick landscape where you are now. What's your appetite for Morocco, and do you see yourself investing more in Morocco at the moment? Khalid, if I can start with you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Abu Dhabi National Hotels has interest in Morocco, and that goes back to the 80s, actually, with the two properties. One in Marrakech that has been recently sold to Group Barcelo, and the other one, it's in Agadir, and it's currently under sale as well. Now, I precise that it was 80s, some investment that was made in the 80s, and these type of investment, they were mainly driven by solidarity, I would say, rather than yield or return on investment. And these two properties, unfortunately, they didn't really play the role to drive further investment into Morocco for various reasons. Some of them were legitimate, because Morocco of the 80s is no longer Morocco of today. So the infrastructure was not really ready. We were looking at much more traditional tourism rather than big scale that is seen today. So that has left, I would say, not very positive perception toward the investors. So when I joined Abu Dhabi National Hotels 5 years ago, so these two properties were on my table to execute the sales. And so we had various discussions with the board of directors, whether to go back to Morocco, whether to continue to retain these two investments. But as I explained, they had some legitimate concerns which, of course, being Moroccan myself, I couldn't really take, strong position in defending, although it's a country that I love and, of course, beautiful with its nature and geographical diversity and so on. But from when I look at that issue from return on investment perspective, yes, they were absolutely right. There was no return, but I think partially it was due to the lack of proper asset management. And that's what has changed the equation today when I have discussions with those investors, that today we are in completely different scheme. Morocco recently did massive investment in infrastructure, whether roads, railway, ports, and others. Morocco continues to enjoy the geographical location that it's exceptional. It is within reach to major key European cities. And the government of Morocco continues to reform all type of legal frame that really cover and ensure the interest of the investors. So all this has today, I can say, and I'm proud to say that, I was even asked from the board really to go and to look for opportunities in Morocco.
Okay. So you're back in the game, looking to invest. Fardan, tell us about your appetite for Morocco at the moment.
Yes. Actually, we've been looking at Morocco for a while right now. Morocco, to us, is a fundamentally very strong tourism market. And the close proximity, as my colleague Khalid was saying, between Europe and the Middle East is also attractive. We've been looking there in a couple of cities, but mainly focusing really on Marrakech. We like the fact also that the supply there is restricted actually from, depending on the city. So that's also a plus point to us. We've been just following what's happening right now. We think today the market is very attractive actually for acquisitions. And this is why we've been looking there actively, especially in the current couple of months. In that kind of sense, we're interested in investing in Morocco. Also, what we've seen is that the government is actually spending on infrastructure, where there's a Morocco vision, to actually expand in airports and the infrastructure over there, which is also helpful, and also opening airports in new cities. That's also very helpful for us, actually.
All right, that's great. And Lourie, tell us about your appetite for, you've started looking at Africa in 2015, Morocco you've invested in. What's your appetite?
Yeah, so we in Morocco, in Marrakech and in Casa at the moment. The short answer is we need more. It's a top target country for us through everything that these gentlemen have just said. Infrastructure, the amount of lift. I mean, the market's changed in Marrakech since the new airport completely. So we're very bullish. It's, as I said, it's a target country for us. Casa and Marrakech, we can probably do more, but we're also starting to look at some of the other centers.
Okay, and what are some of the challenges that you're finding investing in Morocco? Is it looking for finding those opportunities?
To Fardan's point, I think there's opportunities plenty today. Some of those opportunities will mature over the next 12 to 24 months. I think the Westmont business model is to take an operating hotel and improve that hotel, whether that's through CapEx, whether that's operational, but there needs to be some kind of a value add, otherwise we don't get involved. So I think in terms of where we have found it a little bit difficult in Morocco, acquisitions easy, the legislative framework is easy to work with, and I think debt capital markets, something we touched on just now, sometimes the banks tend to disappear. And then if you spend in CapEx, that can get not tricky, but it's quite bureaucratic, especially if the tax on capital expenditure, how that system works, how do you optimize, stuff like that.
So you're looking at conversion opportunities?
Conversion and repositioning. Yep.
Reposition, okay. Fardan, what about yourself?
Yes, actually, what Lourie was saying, we were discussing this actually before joining the panel, is the debt market there is a bit, tricky. We see a lot of banks interested mainly in a lease structure. So if there is any lease structures, you see the banks interested to come and finance. But then in other kind of acquisitions where there's an HMA kind of existing income generating building or a greenfield project, it's not that easy to obtain debt. And part of us actually going, to other countries to invest is actually to take advantage from the debt, markets over there. This is one challenge. And then also, we kind of want income to come back, to the investors or as dividends. There is a couple of, tax layers like withholding taxes and stuff that the dividends are taxed on while exiting Morocco. I think that's a bit, we can work around it. But really the debt market there, if you ask me about, what's the, what made us or delayed our acquisition in Morocco, really is the debt kind of market. It's not friendly.
Okay. And Khalid, for you, is it opportunistic opportunities, or would you look at greenfield side as well?
We will be looking, well, we are currently looking on existing properties, and that I believe that will enable us to, to reposition ourselves in Moroccan market, and then from there eventually to look at other opportunities. And I believe also at, the private public sector partnership. I think that Morocco has quite significant project that could be eventually co-financed by the government and or by institutions from the government. As for the financing, I would rather, get the finance from this part of the world, which is the cost of money. It's a bit, more cheaper than in Africa in general. So, or through other instruments and funds eventually. But yes, we will sure be looking at repositioning ourselves in Morocco. We believe in the future of Morocco. As I said earlier, the natural attribute of Morocco will remain. Morocco government is continuing in investing in development, and that also to mention also the safety security aspect and political stability that is essential for any investor today.
Okay. And Lourie, tell us the type of asset you're looking for.
Business travel, for the most part.
Yeah.
That's our bread and butter.
Yeah.
Business travel in gateway centers. And interesting with Morocco, and very few markets in Africa is doing this, is where you actually start seeing that business traveler market expand beyond just the capital city. Right? You're starting to see some of them in Fez, some of them in Marrakech, some of it up in Tangier. And that's interesting. And that's also a clear sign of a maturing market. Right? And that's partly why we'd like to allocate some more capital there.
Wait, just following up on the whole sort of business travel, how are you seeing that change as well in terms of the product? We had Marlos up on the stage earlier talking about the co-working, co-living type of product. Yeah, difficult, and especially for me because I'm on the numbers side. Look, when we're looking at these repositioning things, the flexibility is key. We can't see 5 years into the future, right? Never mind 10 or 15. So whatever spaces you're creating, it needs to be flexible. It needs to work for everything, not just today, but also in the future. Number one. Number two, the more revenue lines we can generate in a single asset, the more diversified our returns. Okay. Fardan, what about yourself?
Yes, actually, we're looking at the business travel and also the leisure. So, we're chasing yields, and Morocco is a very good yielding kind of country and environment. So, we are doing both of the offerings. Also, what we are looking at, I think most of the brands are present there. So you see most of the brands there, and then in the same time, you see some local brands actually managing hotels in a very perfect way. So we're looking at actually more or less all the spectrum.
Okay, and sorry, just come back to you, Laura. You've got your own brand as well, correct?
Invested in the US in a brand, economy brand called Red Roof.
Right, right. But you're not looking to take that your own brand.
No, not at this stage. No.
Okay.
The operators of the brands are doing very well in Africa at the moment.
Right.
There's a hunger for brands. There's a brand recognition in the most part of the continent. South Africa, a little bit different, and that works, and it will continue to work in the foreseeable future.
You must be seeing quite a lot of opportunistic opportunities throughout Africa right now.
There are a few.
Just a few, yeah. Khalid, what about yourself? I would imagine you're looking at sort of more of the luxury end of the market, aren't you?
No, not necessarily. I mean, look, I know that we are recognized for having or owning luxury products here in the UAE, but Morocco, I mean, it's a destination that it's appeal and will continue to appeal to all different segments, whether leisure, business, domestic tourism is growing. Not to forget as well the Moroccan diaspora that lives around the world and comes and spend, enjoy Morocco. Yeah, I mean, luxury segment, luxury hotels, that could be also, I think there are opportunities in the entry-level 5 stars as well, as a good 3-star hotels, in various cities in Morocco.
Okay. If there's any questions from the audience, please let me know. We talked a little bit about transformation. So as owners, how have you had to transform obviously with the operator? I would imagine it's close collaboration with the operator. But Lourie, any ideas, any thoughts on that, how you have had to look at your business model or your assets?
Yeah, lots. Quite detailed ones, I suppose. But look, I think the key one for us is we've got very good relationships with the brands. So the brands have been very supportive over the last 18 months. I think without their help, we couldn't have done what we had done. And number 2 is people, right? We had to make some tough calls on people. Now, how do you do that, is going to be telling, not just in terms of how you run your business, how you're perceived in the market, how your other stakeholders are looking at you. So this has been, between the support from the brands and how we've had to restructure the way that we look at people and staffing, those are the two big things that we focused on.
Yeah, we heard about that earlier, didn't we, about the whole challenges of staffing. So that must be up there. You've got the debt issues, staffing problems. Any other challenges?
The tax man has become a little bit more aggressive.
Yeah.
But that's part of what we do. Just as investors, we're trying to save money in tough times. Governments need liquidity. So again, something that's been taking a bit of focus from our side. But not too bad.
Okay. Fardan, what about yourself in terms of transforming as an investment vehicle? Is there anything that you're now looking at that you probably wouldn't have looked at before?
In terms of investments,
Yeah.
yes. Actually, we were not really looking at resorts at all. We were looking at more like city hotels or the business travel hotels. But today we are considering resorts, and we're looking at resorts in specific cities, and that wouldn't have been the case maybe a year or 2 years ago.
Okay. Khalid?
I personally believe that business travelers will come back to the whole, I mean, maybe not at the same scale, but we will continue to enjoy those travelers. Now, as far as hotel position and as concern, it's always good to, it's not always possible, but it's good if we can have the hotel that would appeal to different segments and go through different seasons. And that's the case in our hotels in Dubai, which there are fantastic hotels for whether leisure or business. And I think that's the way forward. As for Morocco, I would rather focus on resort type of hotel segment because again the natural beauty of the country, everyone would love to enjoy these natural beauties.
Okay, Imad, we've got you here. What is it? How can you address some of these issues that are, or challenges that have been addressed on the panel, particularly when it comes to staffing, and also there's a little bit here on debt as well. Taxes increasing, perhaps slightly.
I think we have done a lot of. Thank you, first of all, for what have been said, because it's important for us to learn from. Investors, and we have to move on and to improve climate investment, but as well the fiscality of investment is important. We have done a lot of effort helping investors to come to Morocco. Right now, we are more focusing on this kind of new destination where I think Marrakech doesn't need us. Investors are coming to Marrakech. The brands are already present to Marrakech, and so, but we are trying to focus on the south. The south, it's a virgin destination, a beautiful destination. I think you saw the film, you saw as well the picture, and we need, let's say, help to develop this kind of destination. Dakhla, it's a booming destination today. We don't have any more time to find investor there because there are already a lot of people going there. But for the other regions like Galmim, which has a beach destination by excellence, we need people going there. We need people taking a risk there. I'm not talking about maybe brands, but I'm talking more investors. Profile of investor is different than the other destination. So hope COVID is leaving us, is behind us, and hope the investment will come. We didn't stop. We still having people from GCC investing in Rabat, investing in Casablanca. That's why I'm not promoting Rabat. I'm not promoting the investment in the other region, but there's still opportunity to invest in Agadir, to invest in the south, to invest in the middle of Morocco. Thank you, Jonathan.
Okay, no, thank you, Imad. And we heard from Fardan, who's interested in resorts, so definitely pick up the discussion there. Sure. We haven't spoken too much this morning about ESG and sustainability. And this is going to be a key issue for us in the coming years. One of our big challenges. So, Lourie, how as a business, how are you addressing these challenges on sustainability?
It's such a wide-ranging topic.
I know,
I think the first thing look, the brands are very good at doing ESG, right? They've been doing it for a long time. I think the first thing that investors and property owners need to recognize is that this is good business, right? We did a lot of work back Kingdom days with the World Bank and the IFC building out these sustainability models. And yes, you've got a kind of a moral directive to look after your staff, and you're building a very expensive asset, or you're owning a very expensive asset in the community. So you need to think about everything that happens there and see these people as stakeholders. But it's really good business, right? And we've proven it time and again that through having a sustainable mindset when it comes to these things, and this again goes back to people, goes back to design, goes back to energy usage, goes back to supply chains. All of these things across the board ultimately end up with a better return for the owners.
Okay. Khalid, do you want to add anything on that?
In my view, sustainability, I mean, this is something that it is driven by government. And then as an investor, we will only have to embrace and embark with that journey. Of course, when we talk sustainability, especially today, there is a cost involved and attached to that. And again, of course, on the long term, it will pay out. I mean, just start by little things like LED lighting in a hotel that has a consequent cost. But then, of course, this cost will be diluted toward years. So I would leave that to the government, and we as investors, we will just embrace and embark on that journey.
Okay, great. And Fardan, do you have anything to add?
Yes, actually, Khalid pointed about the governments being involved in that, but I also would say the hotel operators actually do, sometimes, come up with ideas, and they've been doing that across other geographies and countries. So they would get us this technology or something, and we would not hesitate to actually implement it.
As long as they don't do it on the cost of owners, huh?
Actually, yeah.
Okay. Excellent. Any questions from the audience?
Anything on short-term rentals or apartments? Anything in that market that you're interested in looking at, or is that something that's still kind of, in your view, far away from an investment perspective in Morocco?
I mean, if you allow me, I would let us to the communities. We wouldn't be big investors just going into that niche market. Does apartments and villas and all that. It's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of small investors, and I would rather leave them enjoy that and just to have the other OTAs to support them and to eventually help them grow their business.
Your hotel assets, or the hotel assets you're looking at an apartment or a residential element to those properties, or out of the question?
Look, today it's quite obvious. Even here in the UAE, you will find a lot of products or model which is hotel and residence, and I think that there is an appeal. I think that will continue. And we will see this moving towards Morocco, towards certain areas, because it's quite lucrative model.
I think mostly in the greenfield projects, yes, people would consider actually building a residential element to the hotel or something. But for us, we look at mainly income-generating assets. Most of the time, if they had a residential element to that would have been sold before actually thinking of selling the hotel. So we're not in the greenfield kind of project, so I think we're not considering that.
Long stay hotel rooms or accommodation in Casablanca specifically. There's a market.
Okay. Any other questions? Yeah, one at the back.
Hi. My question is probably to Fardan, because you mentioned you're interested in resorts more than business hotels. How's your appetite regarding investing in alternative accommodation, that is eco-lodges, experiential lodges, anything that is temporary accommodation and sustainable?
Well, we haven't looked at any investments in Morocco regarding that up to now. We are looking mostly at beach resorts. Or some resorts in Marrakech, for example. But nonetheless, we have to study that more. If there's any opportunities, we're happy to look at it, but it needs much more study from our side.
I suppose not from your side, and unlikely from your side, Khalid?
Yeah, for me as a private person, I would love to, to have a 20 room somewhere on Dakhla. I would love to, but for our institution, no, it's a bit too small.
Too small.
Yeah.
So Fardan, you should have a meeting with Envy afterwards. Okay. Excellent. Well, listen, it's 12:30. I think it's lunchtime. Laura, I'm going to pass back to you, but gents, thank you so much for joining me on stage and learning more about the investor perspective. Thank you so much.